Quick warning. This video will discuss anxiety, panic attacks, PTSD, and suicide. It is completely understandable, especially right now, if those topics are not something that you can handle. In all honesty, this video was really hard for me to make right now. Please practice self-care and enjoy this video of adorable kittens instead. And otherwise, if you choose to watch the video, I hope you enjoy it. In Star Trek Voyager's penultimate Season 4 Episode 1, the crew of the USS Voyager encounters a nebula blocking their path home, which, when entered, causes the crew to suffer horrific radiation burns, leading to one of the crew members' death. In order to avoid the years-long detour to go around the nebula, Captain Janeway decides to place the crew in hibernation, leaving the ship in the hands of only the holographic Doctor and the Borg-modified 7 of 9. The Doctor and Seven, typically on a ship filled with 150 crew members, are isolated by themselves in the vastness of space as they cross the treacherous nebula. Right now, the world is in a global crisis, and many of us are self-isolating in order to protect others and ourselves from the current pandemic. And if you're not, you should be. Unless you're an essential worker or a medical professional, in which case I say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for your courage and perseverance. But for the rest of us, we're locked away at home, cut off from many of our normal social outlets and daily routines, cut off from our physical connections with our coworkers, our friends, our families. And as we in the United States enter into what is our second month of this self-isolation, a lot of us, myself included, are feeling the mental toll of it. For me in particular, I keep returning to this one episode of Star Trek Voyager. 1. Because it, through the character of 7 of 9, captures my current feelings of isolation, anxiety, and emotional triggers that have been steadily consuming my thoughts these past few weeks. At the top of the episode, we find 7 attempting to make small talk, and failing spectacularly.
Ensign Kim, what is your place of origin?
You mean, where am I from? Well, I was born in South Carolina.
Lieutenant Torres, explain why you became a member of the Maquis.
We quickly learn that this was a socialization exercise by the Doctor, who has been working to teach 7 social skills after her reintegration back into being human after spending her entire adolescence and much of her adult life in the Borg Collective, a technological hive mind where all minds are connected. Yet, 7 cannot find any utility in the conversation, unable to understand small talk and social behavior, unable to connect with her fellow crew members.
I created this program to help you become more comfortable in social situations, not to practice alienating people.
Many of you may be surprised by this, but I actually am on the autism spectrum. I was diagnosed as a kid with the now outdated Asperger's syndrome. And one of the aspects of this is that I have a hard time reading others' emotions, unable to anticipate what they're feeling when I'm in an interaction with someone else. And like 7, I too often have trouble with social interactions as a result. I was even bullied as a kid because of it, and I never fully got over that, feeling like I'm just waiting for someone to discover that they don't like me because I may have acted strangely in a conversation or did something weird or silly. Every time I enter into a conversation, I feel overwhelmed with fear. I get inside my head, hoping not to make the wrong move or wondering how long it will take a person to eventually hate me. Because I always have that worry in the back of my mind that they are going to hate me. I feel like I've grown good at hiding it in most cases, but it's always there, and it's always a fear I have to overcome anytime I try to do anything social. It takes a ton of my mental and physical energy for me to work up the nerve to even go to a party or a show. It's why when people suddenly invite me to things or change plans at the last minute, it's really difficult for me to rally to do it. And this isn't an uncommon experience for many on the autism spectrum, with the National Autistic Society finding that nearly 79% of autistic people feel socially isolated. Yet, 7 of 9 and I also share another similarity. You see, while 7 of 9 does appear to have trouble socializing, she also used to be incredibly close with others around her. She was a part of the Borg Collective, able to touch thousands, millions, billions of minds instantaneously. Now, she is alone. Just one, by herself, with only the single voice in her head, isolated in her own body. Despite my social anxiety and being on the autism spectrum, I'm actually an extrovert. I know that may seem like a weird contradiction, but I like being in groups of people, just groups of people that I'm comfortable with. I want to be in a large group of friends. Hell, living with just one roommate actually stresses me out sometimes, as I typically like to have at least 2 or more people around me at all times. It's also why I feel like I may be actually polyamorous, but that's a whole different box to open in a completely other video, and with my therapist still. But many autistic people are stereotyped as aloof figures. But many of us like being with others, despite the anxiety it takes to be with people. I like having human attachment, but I struggle so hard to achieve it sometimes. And I often feel alone, isolated. But I do get through it as best I can. I do have a network of friends that I feel comfortable with that live nearby me and that I go and see often. Yet, right now, at this moment in the world when this video is being made, a lot of those networks have been taken away from me. In one, 7 of 9 is forced to be alone, even losing the doctor at one point due to his holographic emitter and the ship failing due to the nebula's radiation. She becomes even more isolated than ever before, starting to show irritability, anger, and because this is a TV show, vivid hallucinations. She even begins to have dreams of herself alone on a mountaintop, highlighting her isolation. Now, I'm not experiencing hallucinations, but irritability, depression, and anxiety I do certainly feel, especially right now. A lot of people talk about how we all can connect with each other during this pandemic on social media and the internet, and believe me, that has certainly helped me so much. Hanging out and talking with even a lot of you out there that follow me on this channel, on my live streams or on Twitter, has been so incredibly meaningful, and even more so with the people that have been on my Discord and my Facebook chat as well. And you know who you are, and I want to say thank you right here, because people who have reached out to me have been so meaningful right now. But I've also found that it's really hard for me to feel connected through technology. I like being near people, physically near people. And right now, I feel more isolated than I have in a very long time because we physically can't be together. And for me and many Aspies, isolation can be extremely difficult to deal with. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but there's one more thing that I need to talk about that's depicted in 7 of 9's experience, and that's trauma. 7 of 9 was ripped away from the collective, something that had defined her whole life. Being pulled away from a near endless hive mind and then placed into a group of only 150 individuals was really difficult enough. But now, in this episode, she's even more alone than she's ever been. And her traumatic experiences that she's been working through have been compounded to its worst possible state. After being in a sea of thousands, she's alone in an endless void. And as this happens, we start to see crew members of Voyager speaking to her in her head, hallucinations that reflect what she's thinking, to tell her how horrible she is, how worthless she is.
I never wanted her here in the first place.
She won't be here long. She can't survive alone. I'm taking bets on how long she'll last.
She'll fall apart before we leave the nebula.
And then everybody will die.
Well, blame me. I put my trust in her. I should have known better.
When those with autism feel isolated, we can get into this vicious cycle in our mind, into demeaning thinking that we're not good enough and that we're not worth being around others. And because our brains make us fixate on specific things, that thought just gets stuck in there. That we're less than, that we're worthless, that I'm worthless. You see, on top of my many issues with isolation due to my Asperger's, I also have several specific traumatic events in my life dealing with abandonment. There are many of them, but I will get into one specific one right here. This isn't the worst, nor is it the least. It's definitely one that really affected me for a long time. When I started to transition as a trans person, I became very depressed at the start of that journey. It was really difficult time in my life, not just the transition stuff, but the transition did add to a lot of this. And I've talked about that in another video. But during that time, I became extremely toxic, phoning a close friend of mine who was my only emotional crutch, and I cried over and over again to her on the phone or in person that I wanted to kill myself. And so she, rightly, in order to protect her own mental state, had to tell me that we could no longer see each other. She was totally right to do so. I was hurting her in a way that she couldn't deal with anymore. But on the night she told me, it was one of the hardest nights of my life. I screamed and cried and yelled and got drunk and then was eventually driven by a police officer to a hospital because I had said that I wanted to kill myself. And then at that hospital, I had to spend the entire night watching reruns of Everybody Loves Raymond. And believe me, nothing exacerbates depression more than having to binge 3 a.m. reruns of Everybody Loves Raymond. But I did get through it, and I worked it out as best I could, and I survived the next day, the next week, the next month, until many years later, here I am, way better than I was at that time. But to this day, I still have triggers from that night. I still fear friends abandoning me, even though very few do, if ever, and I'm so far from that dark place that I was at that time. But I still have that trigger. I still feel a guttural reaction if a friend changes plans on me or can't meet right now or can't make it to a party. It makes me scared or makes me wonder, am I not good enough? Am I worthless? Am I awful? And the entire world right now, it's triggering those reactions so hard. So here's the part of the video that I didn't script out because I just wanted to tell you how I'm feeling right now in the moment that I'm filming this video. So here's my little clicker thing that goes with my, I forget the name of the thing that you can read off of that I usually read my scripts off of. Teleprompter, there it is. I'm just going to share some stuff with you right now. The past few days I've been feeling like a low burning anxiety in my chest. Like as I go throughout the day, I just feel anxious and just feel like this thing is like wanting to burst out of my chest. It's not as strong as it's ever been. It's not like a full-blown panic attack, but it's just always kind of there. I feel it right now. And I feel irritable and scared. Even the smallest things kind of set me off. That's part of autism as well, like repeated noises really kind of affects me. But it's even more so right now. Like even right now, as I film this, my next door neighbors are playing like the TV or something, and I can just barely hear it. You can probably not even hear it on the microphone, but it's so annoying me right now. It's driving me crazy. I want to like scream and yell and hit the walls, but I know that that's a really mean thing to do. I mean, come on, they're allowed to have noise, but God, if it isn't driving me crazy. Heck, my roommate just a little bit ago was actually cooking in the kitchen, and I was sitting here waiting for him to finish what he was doing, clattering plates to make this video, and I was getting so angry and so annoyed, and that's so unfair. But it's what I'm feeling right now. And yeah, I don't know, I feel really caught in this cycle in my mind a lot of the time that I'm like, my life is pointless and worthless because, and also another thing too is I'm kind of scared right now too about my finances and my job. I mean, a lot of us are, I'm sure, but I did lose some freelance work and I did have a big major change in my full-time job just before this whole craziness with the world happened. And right now, because I was off for a little bit because of my surgery, I'm actually not integrated into a team at my work, and I haven't actually had a lot to do at my job. And my business is doing okay. The company that I work at is doing mostly okay. But I do worry that the fact that I'm not doing a lot of work at the moment means that I'm one of the prime candidates to be fired if, you know, the economy keeps going the way it has. And again, I think that that's me catastrophizing. I'm probably going to be fine. And even if I don't survive, you know, I like do get fired or something like that, I do have enough savings and I will make it through, and I my resume is good. But it's just terrifying me right now. It's really scary. It's it's really, really, really terrifying to feel that all day, every day, and just being like, let me be useful. And the only thing that I feel like I can really invest time in is making these videos, and it's really helpful actually to make videos like this. But yeah, all that anxiety. And then, like I've been talking about in this video, the fact that I have not many close friends to reach out to physically in the same space, it's really hard. It really makes me feel pointless sometimes. I don't have a lot to do at my work. I don't have any friends nearby. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen anyone. I haven't done anything productive today. So what am I worth? Feels like nothing a lot of the time. So yeah, that's a lot of what I'm feeling right now. And like I said, it's kind of a jumble. I know there was no like direct through line, but I just kind of wanted to unscriptedly tell you what I'm feeling right now in this moment. And the reason that I did that was not to get pity or to make you feel bad or go, oh, dang, Jesse, I feel so sad for you. I don't know why you're having that accent. But the reason that I share it is because, first off, I want to tell you that I do have coping mechanisms. I do have tools that I've learned over these many years that help me get out of those cycles. I have ways to break out of it. And so I start to recognize that I'm having those emotions, those feelings, and I use my toolkit that I have built, my own personal one with my therapist and just over the years of having experienced these things, to help myself break out of these thoughts. It doesn't always work, and it doesn't mean it's not hard and that there aren't fallbacks and things that fail a lot of the time, but I do have tools to get out of it. And one of those tools, by the way, one of those coping mechanisms is doing exactly what I'm doing right now. Writing this out, scripting it, hosting it, talking about it to someone, something, just at least getting it out of my head so that it exists in some sort of state that I can just be like, oh, I don't have to feel it in my head all the time. I can just like rewatch this video if I need to remember how to deal with that pathway of thought. Like, oh, this is what I'm feeling. I don't have to like keep it in the back of my mind. So literally me doing this is part of my coping mechanism. And the other reason that I do this too is that I hope that me sharing this connects with you. Because I know, regardless of whether you're on the autism spectrum or not, I know we're all feeling some element of all of this right now. The world is incredibly difficult right now. It feels overbearing and scary, and I know a lot of people are in a lot worse off situation than I am right now for multiple reasons, whether they're worried about their job, whether they actually have the thing that we're all worried about. I can't say the name because YouTube might demonetize me, but yeah, and having family or friends that are going through all of that too. That can feel really helpless and isolating and hard and difficult. So I share this with you to let you know that you are not alone. You are not alone in all of this. That even though we're in our own little boxes on our own little planet spinning throughout the universe, that somehow we're all together. We're closer than we think. And we feel a lot of the same emotions at the same time. The reason that I do these videos about like trans topics or autism or learning about different groups and things like that and issues is not to make you be like, oh, that's so interesting. Look how different this person is or this feeling is or this thing like that. No, it's actually quite the opposite. It's to make you feel a connection. That I explain to you the path and route of my feelings, but show you that even though it may come from a different place, the feelings that I'm feeling, the fear, the anxiety, the feeling like I'm not connecting with my body, that's something that we all feel in many ways, shapes, and forms. And so I hope that by sharing this darker moment in my life, that we're able to connect through it. That's really all I wanted to say with this video. And to end on something that I did script out, so I'll re-grab my clicker here, there is something that 7 of 9 herself does. She repeats this phrase.
I am 7 of 9. I am alone, but I will adapt.
And eventually she gets through. And she finds others by the end of the episode, and she works to connect with them.
Have some soup. It's actually edible.
I don't require nourishment at this time. I felt the need for companionship.
So like I said, that's what I'm doing here. And I'm just going to say, I'm Jesse. It will be okay. I will be okay. Not all of the time, but even that's okay. And I do feel alone right now, but I will adapt. And I will reach out. And we will find each other again. That's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed this video, or at the very least that it was helpful or meaningful to you in some way, shape, or form, and that we can connect each other in this darker time. Just doing the normal end of the video thing. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more discussions of Star Trek, geek culture, and connecting it to our daily lives and what we can learn about ourselves and others through geek culture. Also, if you want to help me out right now financially, which is so incredibly meaningful, especially like I said right now. You can go over to my Patreon page and give there, and you can get yourself some cool perks like your name in a video or being able to ask me to review certain movies or TV shows if you want. So go check out that right now. Saying words. Go check out my Patreon. Like I said, it would be very meaningful if you could support me there. But regardless of if you subscribe or give to my Patreon, I hope that you, as always, and especially right now, live long and prosper. And special thanks to my commander level and above Patreons, especially right now, Eli Bergmas, Stefan Schuhart, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Wellington Marcus, Lal Lindley, Marika Kuyechin, Munir Amlani, and Mystic the Monakit.